There's a place in the ocean where sunlight has never reached. Not dimmed, not filtered, not reduced to a pale, watery glow. Gone. Completely. Permanently. At depths beyond 200 meters, the last photon of solar energy is absorbed by the water column above, and what remains is a darkness so absolute and so complete that it has no equivalent anywhere on the surface of this planet. No moonless night in the remotest desert. No cave system in the deepest mountain. Nothing in the human experience of darkness comes close to what exists in the ocean's midnight zone. And yet, it is not dark. Not entirely. Because the animals that live here, the ones that have adapted over millions of years to this crushing, freezing, lightless world, have done something extraordinary. They have made their own light, and one of them has taken that ability further than almost any other creature on Earth. It has turned bioluminescence into a weapon, a trap, a distress signal so sophisticated that scientists only fully understood it after building an underwater robot capable of reaching it. The animal is called Atolla waivle. Most people have never heard its name, but in the darkest water on the planet, it is one of the most spectacular things alive. And when it is threatened, when something in the dark reaches for it, it does something that looks, in the absolute blackness of the deep ocean, like the birth of a small and terrible star. Atolla waivle is a coronate medusa, a type of deep-sea jellyfish belonging to the order Coronati, a group of cyphozoan jellyfish that have changed very little in their fundamental body plan over hundreds of millions of years. It is not a large animal. Its bell typically measures between 2 and 15 centimeters in diameter, roughly the size of a human fist at its largest. The bell is deep red in color, almost burgundy, with a distinctive groove running around its circumference that gives the coronates their name. From its margin hang numerous short tentacles, and from its underside trails one tentacle longer than all the others, sometimes extending to several times the diameter of the bell itself. This extended tentacle is called the hypertrophied tentacle, and its exact function has been a subject of scientific interest for years. Atolla waivle was formally described by Science in 1880, named after Sir Charles Wyville Thomson, the Scottish naturalist who led the HMS Challenger expedition, the 19th century oceanographic voyage, widely regarded as the founding expedition of modern deep-sea biology. The Challenger dredged specimens from extraordinary depths in the world's oceans, and among those specimens were the first recorded examples of the Atolla genus. But collecting dead or damaged specimens in a dredge net tells you almost nothing about how an animal actually behaves in its natural environment. And for nearly a century after its formal description, almost nothing was known about how Atolla waivle lived, hunted, or defended itself in the midnight zone. That began to change with the development of deep-sea remotely operated vehicles, ROVs, capable of descending to mesopelagic and bathypelagic depths while carrying cameras sensitive enough to record in near-total darkness. And what those cameras eventually captured was something that researchers described in their published accounts with language that rarely appears in scientific literature. They described it as breathtaking. The deep ocean is not merely dark. It is a world in which darkness is the primary ecological force. Every adaptation, every hunting strategy, every defense mechanism in the midnight zone has been shaped by the absolute absence of light. Animals that hunt here cannot rely on vision in the conventional sense. Many have evolved enormous eyes, some proportionally the largest of any animal on Earth, to capture the faintest possible traces of light. Others have abandoned eyes entirely, navigating instead through pressure sensitivity, chemical detection, and the detection of movement in the water column. In this world, any light source is significant. Any light source is information. And Atolla Waivile has evolved to weaponize that fact. When the jellyfish is grabbed, when a predator seizes it in the darkness, it activates one of the most remarkable defensive displays in the animal kingdom. Its bell begins to produce a rapid, repeating series of blue bioluminescent flashes. But these flashes do not pulse evenly or randomly. They rotate, they sweep around the circumference of the bell in a continuous, spinning wheel of light, each flash triggering the next in sequence, producing a pinwheel of cold, blue luminescence that radiates outward into the surrounding dark water. The display lasts as long as the threat continues. It is not a brief flash of warning. It is a sustained, rotating, beacon-like emission that can be detected, potentially, from considerable distances in the darkness of the deep ocean. Scientists call this the burglar alarm display. The name is precise because the display is not intended to frighten the predator currently attacking Atolla Waivile. It is intended to attract something else entirely. The burglar alarm hypothesis in bioluminescence research was first formally proposed by marine biologists Stephen Haddock and James Case, and later developed extensively by Edith Widder, one of the foremost authorities on deep-sea bioluminescence in the world, and a researcher whose career has fundamentally transformed our understanding of light in the deep ocean. The hypothesis rests on a counterintuitive but ecologically elegant logic. When Atolla Waivile is being attacked, it cannot escape easily. It is not fast. It cannot fight back with any meaningful force. Its physical defenses are limited, but it exists in an ecosystem where predators are everywhere, and where many of those predators are significantly larger and more dangerous than whatever is currently attacking the jellyfish. By producing a dramatic, sustained light display at the moment of attack, Atolla Waivile is not trying to scare its attacker. It is broadcasting its location to every visually sensitive predator in the surrounding water. It is, in effect, screaming, not for rescue, but for chaos. It is inviting larger predators to investigate, knowing that the arrival of a larger predator creates a high probability that the original attacker will become the prey. It is using its own distress as bait. This strategy has a direct parallel in terrestrial ecosystems. Many small animals produce loud alarm calls when seized by a predator. Calls that attract other predators or even mobbing behavior from other prey species. The function is the same. Escalate the threat level around the attacker. Create confusion. Increase the probability of the attacker abandoning the attack to deal with a new, more serious threat. But Atolla Waivile executes this strategy in total darkness, using light as the medium, in a world where light itself is the most attention-commanding signal possible. The effectiveness of the strategy was tested directly by Edith Widder and her colleagues using an instrument called the Eye in the Sea, an unobtrusive deep-sea camera system designed to record animal behavior without the disruptive thrusters and lights of a standard ROV. Widder's team deployed the system with a lure that mimicked the Atolla Waivile bioluminescent burglar alarm display, a device they called the electronic jellyfish, or E-jelly, programmed to produce the same rotating blue light wheel that the jellyfish generates under attack. Within minutes of the display beginning, a large squid arrived to investigate. Not a small squid, a giant squid, Architeuthis dux, one of the largest invertebrate predators in the ocean. an animal that had never been photographed alive in its natural deep-sea habitat before that moment. The burglar alarm had worked, even as a mechanical replica. To understand Atolla Wivile's defense, you have to understand how bioluminescence actually works, because it is not, despite appearances, a simple process. Bioluminescence is the production of light through a biochemical reaction within a living organism. The mechanism involves a light-emitting compound called a luciferin, which undergoes oxidation in the presence of an enzyme called luciferase. The reaction releases energy in the form of photons, light, with remarkable efficiency. Unlike a light bulb, which converts only a fraction of energy to light and loses most as heat, bioluminescent reactions produce what is called cold light. Nearly all of the energy released by the reaction is emitted as light, with almost no heat production. In Atolla Wivilae, the bioluminescent cells, photocytes, are distributed in a specific pattern around the bell margin, arranged to produce the rotating sweep of the burglar alarm display, rather than a uniform glow. The sequential activation of these cells, each triggering the next around the circumference, is controlled by the jellyfish's nervous system in a pattern that research suggests is directly triggered by mechanical stimulation. When the bell is deformed by pressure, the pressure of being grabbed, the bioluminescent cascade begins automatically. This is important. The display is not a voluntary decision. It is a reflex, a hardwired, immediate response to physical attack, as automatic as a knee-jerk. The jellyfish does not need to assess the situation or weigh its options. The moment it is seized, the light begins. The color of the display, blue, is not arbitrary. Blue light travels farther through seawater than any other wavelength. The scattering and absorption properties of water specifically attenuate red and green light over distance, while allowing blue wavelengths to travel comparatively unimpeded. Blue bioluminescence in the deep ocean is essentially the optimal color for long-range signaling. Evolution, over millions of years, has converged on exactly the right frequency. Atolla Wivilae is remarkable, but it is not alone. Bioluminescence has evolved independently in the ocean an estimated 40 to 50 separate times across the tree of life. In bacteria, dinoflagellates, fungi, fish, crustaceans, cephalopods, echinoderms, and jellyfish. It is one of the most frequently reinvented adaptations in the history of life on Earth, which tells you something fundamental about how useful it is in the environments where light does not reach from the sun. Edith Widder, in her decades of deep-sea research, has estimated that approximately 76% of all deep-sea animals produce bioluminescence in some form. 76%. In the midnight zone, making light is not the exception. It is close to the norm. The functions vary as widely as the organisms. The anglerfish dangles a bioluminescent lure in front of its enormous jaws, a predatory trap that exploits the tendency of smaller animals to investigate light sources in the dark. The firefly squid, Wattersinia scintillans, covers its body in thousands of photophores arranged in patterns that serve for camouflage against the faint, residual light from above, a technique called counter-illumination. Certain species of deep-sea fish produce red bioluminescence, a wavelength almost no other deep-sea animal can detect, giving them a private channel of illumination invisible to their prey. The deep ocean is not a dark void of inactive biology. It is a world of light, of signals and countermeasures, of lures and alarms and private frequencies, of a million years of evolutionary arms races conducted in the cold and the dark, written in photons instead of sound. Atola Waivale is one author of that story, but it is one among thousands. Despite the advances in deep-sea technology over the past 3 decades, the Midnight Zone remains one of the least explored environments on the planet. The deep ocean covers more than 65% of the Earth's surface. It contains the largest habitable volume of any environment on Earth, and the vast majority of it has never been directly observed. The ROV footage that revealed Atola Waivale's burglar alarm display, the E-Jelly experiment that attracted the first live giant squid ever filmed. These are not old discoveries. They happened within the last 2 decades. The science of the deep ocean is not a mature field reviewing historical findings. It is an active frontier where genuinely new and surprising things are discovered every time a camera reaches sufficient depth. Edith Widder, reflecting on her career in deep-sea research, has made a point that deserves repetition. The ocean's midnight zone is populated by creatures most people have never seen, performing behaviors most scientists have never observed in an environment we have explored far less thoroughly than the surface of the moon. There are animals down there right now in the black water, doing things we do not have names for yet. Some of them, like Atola Waivale, we have glimpsed briefly on camera, under conditions we struggle to replicate. Most of them we haven't found at all. In the deepest water, in the oldest darkness, a small, red jellyfish drifts. It is not thinking. It has no brain, only a simple nerve net distributed through its bell, processing the world in a language of pressure and chemistry and light. It has no eyes to appreciate the display it is capable of producing. It will never see its own light. And yet, when the darkness reaches for it, when something out of the black water closes around its bell, and the nerve signals fire, and the photocytes ignite in sequence, it creates something that, from a distance, in the absolute blackness of the midnight zone, looks almost like a galaxy in miniature. A spinning wheel of cold blue fire, a signal broadcast into a darkness that has been waiting for millions of years for exactly this message. Come. Something is here. And in the dark, something always answers. Scientists are still cataloging what that something is. They are still lowering cameras into the abyss, still watching footage frame by frame, still finding animals they cannot immediately identify, performing behaviors that do not yet have names. The deep ocean keeps giving, and the light down there is the cold, spinning, ancient light of animals that have never seen the sun keeps burning. We have only just learned to look for it.